Dzień dobry Państwu. Chciałem bardzo serdecznie powitać Państwa w imieniu Warsaw Enterprise Institute i
Hello,
Institute for
ladies and
Economic
gentlemen.
Research
I
and
would
Policy
like
Consulting.
to say hello to
Podczas
you
naszego kolejnego
on behalf of the Center for Strategic Research. During
seminarium
our
w ramach
today's
projektu
meeting
Ukraińska
and
droga
our
do Unii Europejskiej,
seminar
polskie doświadczenia.
within the framework
Tym
of
razem
the
zajmiemy
project of
się
Ukrainian Path to European
przemysłem
Union, Polish
drzewnym.
experience, we will be
Seminarium
talking
nosi tytuł
about
Europejskie drewno, przyszłość
problems
ukraińskiego i
and
polskiego przemysłu drzewnego
issues
na
that
wspólnym rynku.
exist in
Uwaga
woodworking
techniczna,
industry.
bardzo
And
proszę
we
o
are also
nastawienie
going to be talking
języka
about
tłumaczenia. Na
functioning
dole
of
mają
Polish and
Państwo 3
Ukrainian
kropeczki, proszę
companies
je
in
wcisnąć,
woodworking on
wybrać
European
opcję
level.
tłumaczeń
If anyone
ustnych. Mamy
needs
3 języki do
interpretation, of
wyboru.
course, you can
Język
use
polski,
that.
język
You can
ukraiński, język
select the
angielski.
globe in the bottom in Zoom, and you can
I wtedy
select
każdy
the
otrzyma tekst w
language. There are
języku
3
wybranym.
languages: English, Ukrainian, and
Bardzo serdecznie
Polish.
chciałem również
And everyone
podziękować
can be listening to
naszym
the
hojnym
language they're comfortable with.
grantodawcom, dzięki
And
którym
I would also
ten nasz
like to
projekt jest
say
możliwy
thank you to our
do
generous
zorganizowania Open Society Foundation
grantors,
i
due to which we
Ukraińskiej
can
Fundacji
implement this
Renesans.
project. This Open Society Foundation and
Przemysł drzewny
Ukrainian
jest bardzo
Renaissance
ważnym
Foundation.
elementem gospodarki
And
zarówno Polski,
we
Ukrainy.
know that woodworking
Wybraliśmy go jako
industry is very
jeden z
important
6
for the
obszarów
economy of Ukraine,
gospodarczych,
and we choose
które będą
this
miały wpływ
industry as one
zarówno
of the
na
6
wejście
industries of
Ukrainy do Unii
economy that will
Europejskiej, jak
be,
i potem
of course,
współpracę
influencing
obu krajów na wspólnym
Ukraine in the process of joining
rynku.
EU, and will
Chcielibyśmy bardzo,
be
żeby był to
important
obszar
when it gets to
współpracy, a
cooperation of
nie
these two countries
konkurencji.
on joint
Chociaż
European
swoją
market. And
drogą w
today we would
konkurencji
like
nic
to
złego
talk
nie ma.
about this. So it's an area
Teraz
for
chciałbym
cooperation,
oddać
not
głos
competition,
Irynie
even though
Kosy, która
competition
będzie
is
moderatorem
not bad.
dzisiejszego spotkania. Proszę, Iryno.
Now I would like to give the floor to Miss Irina, who is going to be moderating our meeting today. Hello, dear participants and guests. Once again, just a technical remark for Ukrainian participants. Please make sure you choose the language of interpretation in Zoom so you can be listening to us in the language you understand. Thank you, Mr. Lukasz, for the introduction of our topic. Indeed, woodworking industry, it's not only an important sector of economy for Poland and Ukraine, it's the area in which we have environmental challenges, regulatory challenges, energy efficiency, and all of this intertwines in this need of cooperation for Ukraine that is actively being integrated in the EU, and it has a lot of prospects for strengthening this industry. Today, we're going to be talking about how our countries not only can be competing, but also creating an efficient model of cooperation that will be answering to all the challenges of nowadays and opportunities. Thank you for everyone who joined us today, dear speakers and guests. Dear speakers will share their experience and their vision. I hope this dialogue will be also very useful. And my first question will be to Mr. Piotr Hartska, who is the director of Polish Chamber of Wood Industry Office. So, Mr. Piotr, what is the role, as you believe, of Ukrainian and Polish market for wood on the overall European market? Mr. Piotr, we don't hear you.
Super, dziękuję. Też Państwu bardzo dziękuję za zaproszenie tutaj.
Yes, thank you for the invitation.
Tylko chciałbym powiedzieć, że jako organizacja taka,
For the invitation of our organization, I would like to say that this organization is the one who works with woodworking industry and covers 50 companies that work in this industry. And we are one of the oldest organizations, but we unite not only companies that are connected with this sawmills and so on, but I would like to talk about woodworking industry, what it looks like in Poland. This is a very powerful area of our economy, maybe not the strongest, but very strong. And this is a driver of Polish GDP. Approximately 3%, depending on who's counting. You can see different data, but approximately 3%. This is a very strong input into Polish economy of the companies that are working in woodworking. There are a lot of them in Poland. There are small companies where they have under 10 people, and there are the majority of them. And as I mentioned previously, our companies in Poland that are functioning and they work in woodworking, they provide jobs for approximately 400,000 people. So you can see that this is quite a serious indicator of employment. But we also need to take into consideration the fact that those companies that work in woodworking, they quite often they are in not very urbanized areas. It's mostly rural areas. So work in this woodworking industry sometimes is the only place where you can find a job. And I think another thing that is worth mentioning, and I think that we also will hear it from many other speakers, in particular, also Mr. Wieruszewski, who is going to talk in more detail about this. But I just want to say from my side, I'm very pleased to be representing woodworking because in Poland, this is a powerful industry with powerful potential. This is worth mentioning. And in Poland, our companies, they have a big potential for its growth. And I think that we will be also talking about this. We will be talking about innovative solutions that are being used in our companies. This is something that Polish companies can show off, so to say. So there is this Polish potential, there is the will, desire to do things that will be supporting woodworking in Poland. And our Polish woodworking industry is the leader in Europe. And I must say, this is not always top one, but we are leading in many indicators in Europe. Hence, we have no shame in that we're leaders, and we quite often set this competition for others on European market. I think we will be talking about this many times as well today, but we really have management as for resources, as for the components of woodworking industry. We have it set. We have a lot of sawmills. We had our problems, of course, smaller and bigger. And if we talk about cooperation with the ministries, respective ministries that are responsible for this industry, but I think those problems they exist everywhere. And as for the challenges of our industry, there are a lot. And one of such is the accession of Ukraine to EU. But I was speaking with representatives of our industry. They don't fear the competition because competition naturally develops the industry. We know at some point back in our time we went through this path. We know how it works, and that's why I think that this is going to be a base for growth of our companies as well. Thank you, Mr. Piotr. You mentioned challenges for woodworking industry, and I think not only accession of Ukraine is a challenge, but also environmental regulations of EU. That's why my next question will be to Mr. Pavlo Kravets, who is the director of FCS in Ukraine, about what are the challenges when it gets to high level of energy intensity and implementation in regards of EU energy efficiency, and what can be done to cut the costs of production. Mr. Pavlo, you're muted. His microphone is off. We do not hear you.
Jeżeli mogę jeszcze tutaj, jeżeli się tam nie połączymy, jeżeli mogę dodać.
If I may, before another speaker has joined, can I say something?
Jeżeli chodzi o
Yes.
ONDR to też mamy, to oczywiście też są wyzwania, tak, jak najbardziej.
As
Te
for
przepisy
the
musi się dostosować,
regulations, environmental regulations, and yes, of
to jest
course,
naprawdę
we
duże
need to
wyzwanie.
be
Jeżeli chodzi o RDR, bo tutaj
complying
pani
with those
wspomniała, to my jako z
regulations and
polskiego gospodarstwa
requirements, and this
przemysłu
is a big
rozumiemy
challenge for us.
i mamy tą świadomość,
We
po co ten
understand
RDR ma
that
być. Jak najbardziej te założenia są słuszne, tylko że
we understand
miałem
why
takie
all of
wrażenie, że w
those
Polsce lasy się potrafią
regulations,
zadbać, mieliśmy
environmental
badania
regulations
naukowe i
exist,
jakby
but
opinii jest
sometimes we
tutaj
have
w tym
this
temacie bardzo
feeling
wiele. A to
where
niestety
our
powoduje
state
znowu
forest and
kolejne
management
takie
of the
biurokratyczne
forest is
mechanizmy, które
happening
się
in a very good
uruchomi.
way.
I
But
okej, chrońmy lasy, bo to temu ma
but
służyć, tak? Między innymi chrońmy drewno.
yes, we need to be
Niemniej jednak
protecting
nie
forests
możemy nakładać
because
takich rygorystycznych
these
przepisów
requirements they
biurokratycznych
also
w
targeting
krajach,
protection of state
gdzie
forest,
ta
but we
wobec
cannot be
przestrzegania, gdzie lasy nie są
imposing such
wycinane w sposób
bureaucratic
jakiś tam
requirements
brutalny, skandaliczny,
in the
niezgodny z prawem.
countries
I
where
nasze stanowisko tutaj, zarówno nasze
where
jako Polskiej Izby Gospodarczej Przemysłu Drzewnego, ale
deforestation
też
is
7 innych
happening in a
organizacji,
horrible
które
way.
tutaj
And
dodatkowo jest takie, żeby po prostu
I must say
te
that
przepisy nie schodziły w życie w naszych krajach
these
albo schodziły w
processes are
takim
regulated in a
trybie, że
proper way
nie
in
będą
our
one tak
country.
rygorystyczne w
One
tych krajach,
thing
gdzie
that
gospodarka leśna jest uporządkowana
sometimes
dobrze,
such very
jak w innych
tough
częściach świata.
requirements are used
Także to jest
only
stanowisko Mojżesza
in those
Przepisów Niezapoznań
countries where
na
there
stronie
is
internetowej.
illegal deforestation
Myślę, że
happening. At the
warto właśnie
same
w ten
time,
sposób
in the
myśleć o
countries
tych
where those
wyzwaniach. To, co
processes
pani
are
starać chciała
regulated,
być
maybe some
oczywiście.
other requirements must be
Niemniej jednak przyznajmy wyrażać swoje
placed.
opinie
And
i
I think
przedstawiać
that's
jakieś
the way
swoje
we approach such
poglądy na
challenges.
wybrane tematy.
Nevertheless, I believe that we always have to be speaking our mind as for this, so we are
Дякую. Я
heard.
бачу, пане Павле, ви включили мікрофон. Будь
Thank
ласка.
you. I hear Mr. Pavlo, you
Дякую,
put
пані
on the
Ірино.
microphone, please.
Шановні
Yes, thank you, Ms.
учасники
Irina, and dear participants
сьогоднішньої зустрічі.
of our
Дозвольте
today's
представитися.
meeting.
Я Павло Кравець, я
So let me introduce myself. My name is Pavlo
національним
Kravets,
представником
and I'm a
України
national representative of FSC in
Це
Ukraine.
міжнародна неурядова некомерційна організація,
And this is international, not governmental, not commercial organization that is taking care of this industry. I'm sorry about the sound is very bad from the speaker. It is represented for many years in Ukraine, and we've been developing in quite powerful way. And more than 4 million hectares we are working with, and the amount of supply chains, those businesses that join to usage of the wood. I'm sorry, it's very bad sound. I cannot hear him properly. Miss Irina, she asked about challenges. I, of course, cannot cover all the challenges that people in woodworking are encountering, but I must mention that those challenges that classically exist in all countries when we talk about ensuring a very fragile balance between social economic interests and environmental ones, and additionally we also have issues connected to changes and other problems. And Ukraine has encountered another challenge, is full-scale invasion. Hence, this significantly really disrupts work of the sector. But along with that, we also should mention that the decline of the economy from 2022 is there, and woodworking sector stood to this hit, and the drop is assessed approximately 10-15%. This way, woodworking sector showed itself being very strong and resistant. Sorry, it's very bad sound. Sorry, we almost don't hear anything.
З можливістю доставки, ми говоримо, товарів через
With the opportunity of
і відповідно
also delivery of the goods through the ports and other problems they have been added up to this. I'm very sorry, but it's very poor quality of the sound, so we cannot hear full sentences.
перебої в енергозабезпеченні. Таким чином маємо величезний набір тих проблем, які зумовили додаткові виклики для цієї галузі. Я кажу максимально.
I'm sorry about the speaker's problem with the microphone apparently, and neither of the interpreters can hear him.
Свої перші так.
So-
Так, я і передаю, будь ласка, іншим.
Yes, then I'm going to give the floor to someone else. Sorry.
Так, це дуже шкода,
Yes,
що через технічну
very sorry that due to technical issues, it was very bad sound from Mr. Pavlo, but we caught the key points. And I want to ask Mr. Dr. Marek Wieruszewski from the Faculty of Forest and Leading Technology about how European regulation and regulations as for forest, how they impact the activity of Polish companies, and what could be the implications for Ukraine after it joins EU.
Dziękuję bardzo pani Ireno za dopuszczenie do głosu.
Thank you, Ms. Irina,
Czy jestem
for
dobrze słyszany?
providing me the opportunity to speak and also present my point of view. I hope you hear me good. Yes. Okay. So, as for the organization of the policy that is connected to the certification on forest management, this system of certification has a very high significance for companies in Poland as well as for Ukrainian enterprises and companies. What Mr. Pavlo Kravets mentioned that at this point there's work being done as for the certification, and this guarantees for all the entrepreneurs in the area of woodworking proper work on Western markets when we talk about the sale of the products without having certification, without having proof that this wood that is being this timber that is being processed and exported has certification. So the timber that is used for building houses and everything. So any area that is connected to the market of wood, we need to have proof that this raw material meets certain requirements, and it is taken from the wood, from the forest that is managed, from those territories where there's proper wood management. And Western companies, they point a lot of attention to this point. So the policy and the economy in woodworking industry, so it meets certain requirements. So that economy is safe for the environment. Hence, the activity that is taking place on the territory of Poland. I think when you are analyzing throughout the latest years, you're analyzing your management, you probably were analyzing the situation that was in Poland. As for the requirements, and this really brought to a very big movement in the domestic market, and when it gets to FSC certification, and this is about companies that send their products throughout the whole world, and companies, they point they pay attention to receiving certain certification for proper wood management. And throughout many years, we were using this policy in a safe way, and having this certificate, of course, strengthen our position on this European market if we compare to Euro-Asian markets. Of course, this is just for the beginning. Of course, certification as one of the elements of such internal policy. It is one of the elements that is, of course, imposing certain costs, but this is something that is paid back if we're talking about specific users of our products. And here, I mean, not only the companies that buy our products, but also individual users from Western Europe, from North America. And of course, there's the indicator that shows more engagement and will to pay more money for products that have guarantee. As for the compliance, as for the balanced economy, when we talk about woodworking industry, and here I'm talking about this not only from scientific point of view, but also economic point of view. Of course, it requires certain work being done, and part of my colleagues from woodworking industry, they also run such researches in the internal market, but also there are researches that are showing the significance of proper, correct approach to woodworking industry in the world, including the fact that Poland and Ukraine has approximately the same potential when it gets to forest management and from one point I mentioned, as it was mentioned by Mr. Piotr, we can be talking about competition, but with such high requirements that will continue growing because society, every time they approach this topic, they do it more and more consciously as for how the material is obtained, and that we need to pay attention to proper forestry management. And this level of progress and such policy that is connected to obtaining such certificates is the most relevant, I believe, for now. This is just like an introduction, and I think you understood me here. And Miss Irena, I also think that we will be speaking about this many times when it gets to insurance or ensuring the activity for companies that work in woodworking industry. We're going to be talking about illegal deforestation. In case of Poland, this is not such a big problem, but I think in Ukraine, this is a very big problem when it gets to, as well, in reference to the aggressor that in a very uncontrolled way is ruining the forest in Ukraine. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Marek. I want to give the floor to Mr. Yuri Andreev. He is the manager of the Committee of European Association. So, Mr. Yuri is a continuation to this topic of challenges for Ukrainian and Polish companies on the EU market. I want to ask as well about opportunities for Ukrainian Polish cooperation and woodworking industry on European market. And if you could maybe also somehow reflect on this question about illegal deforestation. Hello, everyone. My name is Andriy Yuri, and I'm a manager of the Committee of European Business Association. I want to say that part of our committee are the companies that have experience in working in woodworking industry. They are also engaged in producing certain goods in Ukraine. The committee was found back in October 2015. So in 1 year, we will have been having 10 years anniversary. When it gets to cooperation, of course, companies are interested in cooperation, which in its turn is going to be quite a positive competition, we can say. And of course, this is all supported, and this is going to be very useful. But maybe companies they talk about very positive Polish experience. So in Poland, as far as I know, there are companies that produce energy or burn wood. They cannot buy directly round wood for burning, and they are not led to the auctions. And also quite relevant, as far as I know, on the Polish market, it's very important to use also the offer that is allowing to ensure 75% of the raw material for the current year for enterprise. And it's also important to mention that in Poland there is free access to procurement for state enterprises, which also shows a very good transparency of the market. And as far as I know, in Poland, the preparation of wood is much higher than we have, two or three folds. And as for challenges, of course, we are looking at this regulation DR, and we are working on this actively. We point out the need of engaging the companies that work in this industry for the implementation of this regulation, because in each country there are certain peculiarities, and of course, before you do something, you need to hear the voice of the business. Also, I wanted to emphasize for the colleagues certain things. There have been some situations then when between Ukrainian and Polish companies there were some contracts signed as for purchasing finished product, but including the blockage of Polish border, they were not implemented, and there were some financial losses, of course, on the. So we would like to ask our colleagues to also communicate this to Polish side, because it's quite a good product, and it's a very unfortunate situation. And talking about illegal deforestation, this is probably not to us this question goes, but probably to law enforcement and relevant state bodies. If there is something else, any other questions, I will be happy to comment.
Jeżeli można zapytać, w kwestii dyrektywy,
If I may
która w
ask,
2023 została
so
przyjęta i
as
dotyczy
for
właśnie
the
wykorzystania
directive
zamożenia
that was
rozmawiania
adopted
czerwonych
2023,
gospodarstw,
that is about the use and
Ukraina
popularization
kwestię
of
związaną
renewable
z
energy sources.
regulatorami
How
i
does Ukraine see the
ograniczeniem
issues
także
in
wykorzystania
regulation
biomasu
in
jako
this
energii
area,
odnawialnej
and
na rzecz
limitation on
innych
using
źródeł
biomass
energii, to
as
jest wiatru i
renewable
słońca?
energy source, benefiting the other sources as wind or sun? This is a question to you. I'm sorry, I was kicked out from the meeting. Do you hear me now? Yes, we hear you. Yes, we hear you. Mark, look, as for this directive, we just started studying this directive, and as far as I know, during my time in the association, there has been only one meeting. That's why this issue we only started digging into on the level of ministries and agencies, and I hope that very soon we will have some position from the governmental bodies and business. Frankly speaking, the last time we met, it was such a meeting. We were talking about the future issues, future influence. It was just an introductory meeting, including the amount of regulations and acts of European Union that we need to implement. You know, it's quite a lot, and this is an important role. So gradually we, so to say, start working with them one by one. It's very big problem with translation and interpretation, because it can be interpreted in a different way, and we need to have expert groups on that, because including the nuances of interpretation, there could be a big problems. So we had only one meeting in this area.
Так, дякую. Я
Yes,
продовжую
thank
виконувати
you.
свої функції
I will
модератора.
continue
Наступне
performing my
питання буде
functions as a
до
moderator.
Ярослава
So my
Маciążka,
next
члена
question will be to
Група
Mr.
Palletenwerk.
Jarosław
Пане
Maciążek, who is the
Ярославе,
board member of Grupa Palletenwerk. So, Mr. Jarosław, as a continuation to this topic of cooperation between Ukrainian and Polish producers, how can they improve their common certain competition benefits on the market of EU, and what are the priorities in this cooperation?
Mogę tutaj występować w podwójnej roli, ponieważ jestem także
I
prezydentem
can
Stowarzyszenia
be
EPA, które
performing the double
jednoczy
role
wszystkich
because
producentów nawiązując
I
do
am the head of the
wcześniejszych wystąpień,
association that is
dotyczących
uniting
regulacji,
of all
prawy oraz dyrektyw. Mogę
the
powiedzieć, że
manufacturers
widzę tutaj duże pole współpracy między
and I can
ukraińskimi
say that
firmami,
I see a very
polskimi, czy
big
też szeroko idącymi firmami
potential
europejskimi
for
właśnie w ramach
cooperation
tego
between
stowarzyszenia,
Ukrainian and
jakim jest
Polish companies and European
stowarzyszenie EPA.
companies within the
Ponieważ
framework of this
tego typu
association. And this
stowarzyszenia
is EPA
zaczynają się
association, because
zaczynają się
association of
właśnie,
such
prawda?
kind,
Próbujemy je
we
interpretować i
always
przekazujemy te istotne
we
treści,
always get
które
acquainted
są
uh,
decydujące dla naszego biznesu, naszym
with
członkom. Dlatego też
certain
zachęcam
requirements, and we
ukraińskie
communicate
do
that
uczestniczenia
crucial
w
information for
pracach
the
takich
members of
stowarzyszeń,
our association. So I
które
encourage Ukrainian
jednoczą właśnie firmy danego
companies
sektora.
to take part
Natomiast
in
jeżeli chodzi o
work of such association
współpracę,
that
czy
unites
też
companies in
w ogóle
one
aktywność na rynku
sector.
europejskim, to tak jak moi
For
przedmówcy
example, when we
stwierdzili,
talk about
certyfikacja
cooperation and some activity on
potwierdzenie
European market,
pochodzenia
first of all,
wyrobów
this is
jest
certification,
czynnikiem najbardziej
and
istotnym
also
w naszym
the
biznesie na rynku europejskim, ale także na rynku światowym.
timber
Ponieważ
traceability and proof
istnieją
of
poszczególne
origin, and this is a very important
europejskie,
indicator
które
for
pozwalają
working on European and
na
world markets,
sprawdzanie
because there are
nie tylko
European
pochodzenia wyrobów, ale
regulations
także
that
wyciąganie bardzo
allow not
surowych
only
konsekwencji wobec firm,
to
które nie
check the
skorzystały,
origin of timber,
prowadząc
but
postępowanie.
also
Także
impose
wobec firm
very tough
importujących.
consequences if we talk about
Mówimy tutaj
companies
o
that
sprzedaży
cannot
kolejnych swoich
answer for
towarów
the
na
origin
rynki
of the timber.
europejskie. I
So
jeżeli
when
te
selling
nie zostaną w
wood
odpowiedni
from
sposób
Ukraine
ukarane,
and
to
Poland and
takich
European
importerów grozi
markets,
naprawdę
if
bardzo duże
the
konsekwencje finansowe.
timber
Natomiast
traceability is not there,
także
you cannot prove this, then companies will have
jak
very
widzę
serious
przyszłość,
consequences.
to
And
myślę, że tak jak zostało wspomniane,
as
jesteśmy
for
krajem
the
o
future, as I
podobnych
see it,
zasobach
it
leśnych
was mentioned before already that we are
wzorując się na tym,
the countries that have
w jaki
similar
sposób przebiegał
resources. But if we
rozwój
talk
w
about
roku
forest and
myślę, że
looking at
powinniśmy
how
spróbować nie
the
popełniać tych błędów, które
development of this
popełniano
industry is
w
happening
zachodniej
in
części Europy.
Western Europe,
Na
I
przykład
think we should take into
w pewnym momencie
consideration the mistakes that the
Niemcem
Western Europe has
była
done at
bardzo
some
duża
point.
tendencja do
For example, at
przeciągania
some point
olbrzymich
in Germany,
hektarów.
there was this
Przebiegał
tendency
ponad
for
milion
creation of such big,
drewna rocznie,
powerful
co
sawmills
oczywiście
that were
było imponujące, natomiast
processing
nie
one,
było
2 million of
efektywność
cubic meter of timber throughout the
efektywność
year.
gospodarczą, no
But
niekoniecznie
when we talk
się
about the
sprawdza.
efficiency
Więc
and economic
myślę,
efficiency of
że
such sawmills,
tutaj jest
it was
wymiana
not
między
very
nami, między
high, the
firmami, między
efficiency.
stowarzyszeniami,
And
między
I think
takimi firmami
that
jak EPA,
us among ourselves,
pozwoli
associations,
na
industry
usunięcie
associations,
pewnych
we should
błędów.
exchange
Oczywiście
information,
biznes kieruje się
since it
swoimi
will
zasadami
help
i
us
każdy
avoiding
przedsiębiorca
such mistakes in the
wie
future. Of course,
dokładnie,
business is
czego
dedicated
oczekuje
by its rules and
w jaki
principles,
sposób
and
należy zaangażować. Natomiast
entrepreneurs, they
na
know what
pewno
they want, what they are striving for, and how they can
polscy przedsiębiorcy
build
są
cooperation
myślę
between
dobrym
themselves But we must say that Polish entrepreneurs are really very not bad partners for companies from Ukraine because 30 years ago we went through the same path, something similar to what Ukrainian companies go through today. We know what can be avoided, we know how the process of adaptation goes. And of course, right now I'm using such broad words. I'm not going to details of this process, but I believe that this cooperation is a very good way if we're talking about our
Пане
future.
Пьотре, а на вашу думку,
Thank
який
you. Mr.
досвід
Piotr,
інших компаній
in your
пов'язаний з цим
opinion,
є корисним
what
для
maybe
українських
experience of Polish
виробників?
companies, again, connected to Ukraine joining the EU can be useful for
Co
Ukrainian
jest jeszcze
woodworking
dla mnie?
companies in
To
terms
pytanie?
of all
Ні,
the
це
issues? Is
питання
this for me
до
or is
Петра
it for?
Гарстки.
No, sorry, this is the question to Mr. Piotr
Mogę jeszcze raz
Garstka.
prosić o powtórzenie, przepraszam, bo tutaj mam jakieś...
Could you please repeat once again?
Szanowni Państwo, to jest to wszystko, o czym tutaj mówimy. Jest wiele spraw właśnie takich związanych z
This
tą
is all,
certyfikacją, czy
all of this
z
that
rozwojem
we're talking
firm, z
about. This
wybieraniem
is
modelów,
certification.
modelu
This is
firmy.
the growth of the
Tak jak
companies.
tutaj
This
przed
is
chwilą mój
choosing the
przedmówca
model for business
wspomniał,
growth. And as
pan
Mr.
Jarosław,
Jarek mentioned
my przechodziliśmy to samo,
before,
co Państwo
we
będziecie
we
przechodzić już
went through
niebawem,
the
30
same
lat temu i
path
tutaj,
that you're going through now,
tutaj
but 30 years ago, hence,
halo, halo?
and
Czy mnie słychać?
sorry, something is bad with the sound.
Okej. Także te nasze doświadczenia sprzed 30 lat na pewno
So our
będą
experience that
pomocne
we
dla naszych
received
ukraińskich
30
partnerów.
years
Tutaj też
ago.
od razu
I
zwróciłem
think
uwagę na
it
to, co
will
pan
be useful for our
Jarosław
Ukrainian
powiedział, bo to też
partners. And
niezwykle
right
istotne.
away, I wanted to point
Bardzo
out
Państwu
what Mr.
polecamy,
Jarosław said, because this is also
zwróćcie
very
na to uwagę, że
important. We
warto,
recommend you
żeby firmy się
very much
zorganizowały w
and want to
jakieś
point out your
stowarzyszenia,
attention.
izby, jakiekolwiek inne organizacje, bo to
So
niezwykle
in
ułatwia
Ukraine,
później takie
there are some
różnego rodzaju
chambers or
procesy, które trzeba
associations
wdrażać,
or
którym trzeba
are put
zająć
together,
stanowisko,
since it's
bądź też
much
zaopiniować
easier
różnego rodzaju
to
projekty
overcome
czy
certain
zmiany, które miałyby
processes
zachodzić.
together when it
I
gets to
dobrze, żebyście wy
challenges,
Państwo
to
jako branża
requirements
uczestniczyli jeszcze w
that
takiej
are
inicjatywie. No mówię, naszą
introduced by
prowadzimy od 30
EU.
lat
And I am very
i
actively
wielu naszych
encouraging you
członków
to
jest
do
osób,
this
które
because, for example,
uczestniczyły,
our
przechodziły
chamber has
tą
been
samą
working for the last
modernizację
30 years, and a lot of the members
naprawdę
and
myślę, że z wieloma
organizations
postąpiłyby się takimi
they went through the
doświadczeniami,
process
wspólnymi sukcesami
related
przed
to
Bo uwierzcie Państwo,
requirements,
gdybyśmy
and we
tutaj
are
stworzyli
happy
taki
to
zakład
share our
tartaczny, zakład
experience. What
przetwórstwa
else?
pewnego 30 czy jeszcze 35,
Look
czy nawet 40 lat temu, to są
into
dosyć dawne dzieje, ale te
into the
maszyny,
work
te
of
te zakłady
sawmills.
wyglądały całkowicie inaczej.
In
Skupiały
the
się na czymś innym.
principle, our
Było tam
sawmills
światem
30 years ago, they looked
rzeczy, które teraz
completely
są
different.
priorytetem.
They were focusing on
Także
completely different priorities. And right now,
wszystkie doświadczenia, które
the
my przeprowadziliśmy,
priorities,
będziecie
they
też wy
changed
Państwo
completely
przechodzić.
when it gets
Mm,
to the work of sawmills. So
Staramy
any
się taką
experience
formę
that we went
podsumowywać to,
through
z czym się musimy
back in our
mierzyć,
time, or
z czym
this
musimy, z
path
czym
that
Państwo musicie stawić
that we
czoła i też
went
my
through, you will also
gospodarka
take on
naszego kraju.
yourselves,
Nie ma
and
co
we
ukrywać,
can
szanowni Państwo,
share
jesteśmy
this
sąsiadami.
experience.
Jesteśmy swoimi najbliższymi sąsiadami i to
We
wszystko,
must
co
say we're
będzie
neighbors,
wychodziło
right?
przez tutaj z Państwa
So
strony, w stronę
I think
zachodu,
that
czy też i w drugą stronę, to istnieje duże prawdopodobieństwo, że to będzie
these
właśnie
requirements that are going to be
odbywało się
set
pomiędzy
to
naszymi dwoma
you
państwami,
are very
dlatego też
similar to
pewną
those
niezwykłą
that
rolą
back in the time were
jest
set for
współpraca
us.
naszych
And
tutaj
probably those
zarządzących
changes
tych
that are
instytutów,
happening
tak żeby ułatwić,
for you, they will
ułatwić
be
przekaz,
also
taki przekaz
influencing our
informacji
works. That's why I
w
think
stronie
we
ukraińskiej,
need
jeżeli
to
chodzi o
work
dzielenie się
together
doświadczeniami,
to
jeżeli chodzi o
cooperate, and
strategię
we will be happy to
woodworkingu. A
share
tych wyzwań na pewno jest,
information with
uwierzcie mi Państwo,
Ukrainian
wiele.
side, share our
Nie tylko
experience
jeżeli
when we
chodzi
talk
o
about
sprawy
joining
certyfikacji, ale też
EU.
o
Those
sprawy
challenges, there are going to be a lot of
ograniczenia
challenges, and they're going
spalania,
to be related
zielony
not
ład
only
i tak
to
dalej, i
the
tak dalej, i z tymi też
certification,
Państwo
but
będziecie musieli
also
zapewne zmierzyć się.
limitation limitations that are imposed by regulations, environmental regulations, and the Green Deal. And we will be happy to share
Może
our
skorzystam z
experience with
okazji,
you.
że pani Nina jeszcze
I will
jakby
use
tutaj nie
the
dotarła do
opportunity
ze względu chyba na jakieś problemy
to
techniczne. W
complement
każdym razie, jeżeli chodzi o uzupełnienie
because
wypowiedzi
Miss
pana
Irina probably hasn't
reprezentacji
joined us
i w
back.
nawiązaniu do
So
informacji, którą przekazał
complementing
właśnie pan
the
Jarosław
speech of
Maciążek
Mr.
przed
Piotr
panią,
and
kwestie
going back
dotyczące
to
zmian
the
prawnych to
information
są
that was
elementy,
provided
które
by Mr.
będą
Jarosław.
dosyć ważnym
As for
aspekcie
the changes, the
przygotowania
amendments
ruchu
in regulatory base, this is
ukraińskiego
very
na wejście do Unii
important
Europejskiej.
information
Rozwój technologiczny
when it gets
jak
to
tutaj pan Piotr
adaptation of
wskazywał,
Ukrainian
postępował u nas
market
dosyć
to
długo,
requirements
szczególnie
of
w tych branżach
European market.
najbardziej podstawowych.
So
W tej dolnej
technical
części piramidy
development was
gospodarki
happening for
drzewnej.
quite a long
Wiadomo,
time
jeżeli
for
chodzi o
us.
branżę
First, it
związaną z
was
meblarstwem, tam
the
implementacja nowych technologii
changes
była
in
bardzo
basic technical
intensywna
elements, so to
i było
say.
to zauważalne.
And
Powodowało to
when it
także
gets to
wzrost wymagań,
furniture
jeżeli chodzi
production,
o
for example,
przygotowanie kadr.
industry, it was innovative changes
Firmy
were very
funkcjonują w
powerful
oparciu o
because as
członkowskich
well
w
the
kwestię
requirements
surowcową, ale
for
także o
personnel
zabezpieczenie, jeżeli
preparation
chodzi o utrzymanie nowoczesnych
were
technologii, które są
different,
wprowadzane do tych
and
przedsiębiorstw. A więc
not
nowe
only about the
maszyny, nowe
use of good
technologie,
quality
ale przede wszystkim także
timber,
odpowiednio
but
przygotowane
also
kadry. Patrzę tak z
usage of
perspektywy
modern
chociażby
technology.
uczelni.
Not
Właściwa
only you need
grupa
to
inżynierów, która trafia do
introduce
przemysłu, gwarantuje też
new
dobry rozwój przedsiębiorstwa. Myślę, że pan
equipment, but you
Jarek o
also
tym
need
mówi,
to
jeżeli chodzi o
prepare
produkcję palet, jest
personnel
coraz większa
composition
ta forma
using modern
automatyzacji tego
requirements. And I
procesu.
think this is
Ma
another
duże
topic you need
znaczenie
to pay a
dla
lot of
efektu
attention
ekonomicznego.
towards preparation of personnel.
Przedsiębiorcy działają na rynku
Training,
po to, aby uzyskać
automatization
te zasoby
has a lot of
techniczne.
impact
To nie
on
jest
the work of
działalność chwilowa,
industries
a więc musimy patrzeć także
in
pod
such area of
kątem
work, and
niedobrze
to see
uczynienia
the economic
właśnie tematu
effects.
zabezpieczenia
Not
surowca
only you
odpowiednich
must
certyfikatach
introduce
gwarantujących właśnie ten
raw
element
materials with good
bezpieczeństwa
quality that is compliant with all the
środowiskowego,
requirements.
tą bezpieczną formę związaną
Also,
także z zabezpieczeniem
you
przed
should
eksplooracją, jeżeli chodzi o zwłaszcza powierzchnie
implement
leśne, to
high
dosyć
technologies
temat ważny,
without,
ale
of course,
utrzymywany na
forgetting about
dobrym
environmental
poziomie jakościowym
requirements.
dzięki
And when it
realizacji
gets
pracy
to
przez wiele
Poland,
pokoleń leśników.
forest
Tutaj
management is
zwracam uwagę
happening
w stosunku
on
do
the
naprawdę
proper
bardzo
level.
zaangażowanych
And
od
here I must
dziesiątek lat
say,
ludzi, którzy
I
zajmują się
must
tym pracą.
pay the respects to the
Mężczyźni, tutaj
people
kobiety, którzy
that
są w
are
tych
working
lasach,
in
naprawdę
this
wykonują potężną pracę, żeby utrzymać
for a
jakość
few
drzewą
dozens of
stanu, które
years now,
gwarantują
and
ciągłość także wykorzystania tego
people
drewna
that work
dla
there,
celów społecznych, no bo
they
mieszkamy w domach,
are
gdzie jest pełno drewna.
monitoring the
Wiadomo, że to
proper
nie jest tylko
state of the
aspekt
wood,
jakiś
of the
społeczny, że
forest,
idziemy na spacer do lasu.
and you know,
I
as
o
they
tym gdzieś
say,
sobie
wood is
właśnie
all around
zapominamy i zdajemy
us.
sobie z tego sprawę i staramy się to
Forest is all
łączyć.
around us, and we have to remember
Okazji
about
jeszcze
this.
tutaj pan prezes wspominał o
And
kwestiach chociażby rozporządzenia
whenever
Unii Europejskiej właśnie w sprawie
an opportunity
dekloracji. To jest
arises,
jednym z
also Mr.
elementów, który
Jarosław,
też
he
będzie dosyć
mentioned
istotny przy identyfikacji pochodzenia surowca,
there was
przy
also
dokładną
a question
identyfikacji, o skąd ten surowiec tak naprawdę trafia do zakładu i jaka jest dalsza jego droga.
declaration,
Kwestia układu
meaning
kaskadowego wykorzystania
the timber
surowca drzewnego to jest
traceability
jeden z
and the
kolejnych
origin of the
elementów,
wood.
który
So
będzie
the
miał
issue
dużą
about
wagę
cascade
w aspekcie
system,
właśnie
this is also one
rozwijania
of the
branży
elements that
drzewnej
will
zarówno
play
na
a
Ukrainie, ale
significant
też oczywiście u
role
nas w Polsce.
in the
I przy
development
okazji
of
tutaj jeszcze
woodworking
wskazał pan
industry, both in
dyrektor
Ukraine and in
Garstka.
Poland.
Przepływ tego
And also,
surowca
Mr.
to
Garstka,
jest
he
jedna strona, ale
mentioned
też
that,
przemieszczanie, czyli ta kwestia
of course,
logistyki
the origin of this
przepływu
timber
wyrobów
is
drzewnych
one
to jest też
thing,
bardzo
but
ważny element,
also
a
the
więc
movement of
kwestia
the timber,
dóbr,
so logistics of
przemieszczania,
finished
kwestia
products,
także
it's also
różnego
very
typu
important. And the
chociażby
issue
aspektów
about
fitosanitarnych
roads,
związanych między innymi z kwestią palet, czyli mamy zabiegi
and
pozwalające na
also
zabezpieczenie przed
sanitary
przemieszczaniem
requirements that
materiałów, które
are
mogłyby w sposób biologiczny
connected
zagrażać
to this. This is all very
państwom, z którymi
important
współpracujemy.
issues. You need to pay
Tak, pani Ireno,
attention
już kończę.
to the
Bardzo
fuel
dziękuję.
that is used for transporting timber. Yes, so Miss Irina, sorry, I'm
Ні,
done. I
дуже
just
дякую.
used the
Я
opportunity when you
перепрошую,
were
що
not
маємо
here.
ці технічні
No,
проблеми з
thank you very much.
інтернетом.
I'm sorry for having such technical
Але я
issues with
хочу
internet.
задати питання,
But I want to ask a question that was sent to us during registration. We asked our participants to share their questions, and one of the questions was, is there a replacement for timber in furniture? Do we need to uh, to use this, or can it be something else? So that's a question to everyone who can provide an answer.
Oczywiście drewno można zastąpić
Ну, ці
wielu
особи не
czynникach.
зацікавлені в цьому, вибачте, да,
Well,
це
sorry,
просто є
these people,
питання,
they're not
і вони
interested
в
in
цьому
this.
не
This was my
зацікавлені. Тому
question.
в них
They're not
головне це
interested.
збільшити
For them, the
обсяги
main thing
лісопилок
is
і
to
збільшити обсяг
increase
обробки
the
дерев.
volume of their
Тому
sawmills and the
таке
volume
запрошення.
of
Дуже дякую. Да, я
woodworking.
Внукова
Miss
Наталя
Natalia,
Миколаївна, доктор економічних
please
наук, професор, працюю в
introduce yourself.
Харкові,
My name
місті
is
Героїв.
Vnukova
Да,
Natalia
по
Mykolaeva.
дослідам
I'm a
інституту
PhD in
забезпечення
economic
інноваційного
science. I
розвитку
work in Kharkiv
Національної
in
академії
the
правових
hero
наук
city,
України, і ми
work in
займаємося саме питаннями
Science Research
екологічного,
Institute for
екологічного
ensuring
права.
innovative
Тому мене цікавить
development in the
питання
National
саме
Academy
деревообробки
of
чи справи.
Legal
Тому дуже
Sciences,
я вам дякую,
and
що
I
ви це
work in
підкреслили.
the
Саме питання
related
викликів, які
area to
пов'язані з
law in
екологією,
environmental
сталим розвитком,
requirements. And
зеленим
thank you for
переходом.
underlining
Тому
this. And we
тут
work with
ви
these
дуже
areas
зараз, я
with
так розумію,
ecology,
говорите
environment,
більше
and
питання це конкуренції з Україною.
sustainability, green
Тому да, дуже
transition.
дякую за таку
And I see
дискусію.
it's not that
І
much about
бачите,
this,
якраз
it's more about
питання,
the
чи будуть
competition with
замінники, є
Ukraine. Well,
дуже
thank you for
цікавим.
this
Дуже
discussion.
дякую.
And I see that the question
Дякую,
about
пані Наталю. Пане
some
Ярославе,
alternatives is not very
передаю вам
interesting
слово.
to them. Thank you. Mr. Jarosław, you started mentioning, could you
Dziękuję
please?
bardzo. Oczywiście jest możliwość
Thank you.
zastąpienia drewna w wielu jego zastosowaniach, ale czy
Yes, of
na
course,
potrzeby
there
przejść
is
to
an
jest inna
opportunity
sprawa.
for wood
Natomiast
substitutes when
częściowo
it
to
gets to
właśnie
production of
zgodnie z
furniture,
mowa. Oczywiście
but whether it makes
nasze,
sense, this is
nasze
another
zespoły
question. But
zadaniem
coming
jest
back to what Mr. Marek
doprowadzenie do takiej
said,
sytuacji, kiedy
I would like to say that
przewóz
our common
tradycyjny,
goal
zajmujący się przetwórstwem
is
drewna, aby to
to
drewno
get
wykorzystywane w
to
sposób
the
jak najbardziej
point where
optymalny.
any
Temu też
production
służy rozwój
companies that
technologiczny,
work in woodworking industry, so they
opracowanie określonych
use
procesów,
optimal
na
solutions on all the
wykorzystanie tych
stages.
procesów
For example,
na
on the stage of timber
po to, aby
usage and
rzeczywiście to
using the personnel
dostajemy
composition and
roślin,
equipment, for
wykorzystywać
example,
w maksymalnym stopniu.
in
Ta
order
część, która
for
zawsze pozostanie
so this the result that we get
użytkowana,
is
ten
optimal.
odpad był jak najmniejszy. Ale w przypadku drewna właśnie
Because
tak jak
if
mówię,
we talk
absolutnie można
about
gospodarować biomasą
waste
jako ewentualnym
from timber, we
surowcem
need to do everything possible
właśnie
so that
mebli,
waste is
płytów
minimal,
meblowych, czy też
and maximum
sznurów
amount of
wodowych,
waste that is
które są produkowane
that we get, so they use they can get
jako element
to
do
secondary
dekora
usage,
w ogrodnictwie. Także
and
rzeczywiście możemy
so
zastąpić drewno w miejscach, tak jak zresztą w Azji to się dzieje.
of
W
course
w
we
wielu
can be looking
przypadkach
for
palety
substitutes,
drewniane
find
są
substitutes for
zastosowane
wood,
bardzo
and in many
często
cases,
i
for
wiadomo, że
example,
ten rozwój nie będzie
uh, we can
postępował
say that,
w
for
takim
example,
kierunku,
chipboard
dlatego
is
że
replaced
jeżeli
with
tego
plastic
dojdzie w
board, and
przyszłości
I think the
do
world will
zmniejszy
be
się
developing in
zapotrzebowanie
this
już związanych
direction. But if
węglem,
at some point in the future the
benzyną,
amount of machines is
tendencje wzrostania
decreased,
też
the cars that are
przyczynią do
using
coraz bardziej
fuel or
wpływały.
diesel
Wiemy, że to jest
gas, hence
istotnie
we will
nawołowalne,
have
więc prawdopodobnie też
uh,
koszty
we will
wyprodukowania
have
takich paliw
surplus
czy
of
opakowań plastikowych będą coraz mniejsze.
oil,
Być może w takim kierunku będzie następował rozwój, no ale
but
to
we know,
zobaczymy
and hence
w
the
przestrzeni
costs
przyszłości.
for producing such plastic materials will go down. Everything is possible,
Дякую,
everything
пане
is moving, we
Ярославе,
will
за
see.
відповідь. Пані Марку, ви хочете
Thank you, Mr.
додати?
Jarosław, for the answer. Mr. Marek, you wanted to add something?
Tak, jeżeli chodzi o kwestię
Yes, I
wykorzystania
would like to add,
innych
if we're
materiałów,
talking about the
oczywiście tak jak bardzo ładnie
usage
pan
of
Marek podkreślił,
other
recykling jest bardzo ważny,
materials,
to pozwala na to, żeby
of
ponownie
course,
wykonać
as
dany materiał
Mr.
i
Jarosław
złożyć go ponownie w pracę. Także
mentioned,
chociażby przy opakowaniu
that
też mebla.
recycling, so
I taki
secondary
wniosek,
use of
podsumowując,
waste
drewno nie ma
is
odpadów,
also
tylko
very
produkty uboczne, które
important, and
cały
this
czas
can be
stanowią bardzo
used
ważny
also
element
when
procesu technologicznego
during
w
the
obszarach
production of
innego działania
other
prawnego.
products. One thing that you have to pay attention to the technological processes. That's why here we always emphasize that that wood is used as much as possible, and also the waste from wood, and we try to have this process of this cycle, to have it as a full closed cycle, and thankful to this, we can be planting other trees that will be improving the state of our air, but coming back to other materials, so we can be using the material, for example, the waste for making other products. We can use different materials like rapeseed and others to make elements that are used in woodworking. And plastic, this is one of the elements that appear in the case of secondary use, but we should not bring more pollution to the environment if we talk about making plastic, and this is something that is being very actively developed in Europe, but we didn't move too far away from these general tendencies. Thank you. If I can interfere in this discussion as for this topic, when it gets to alternative production, making furniture from not wood but plastic, concrete, and other things. If we talk about accession to EU and those regulations that are set by EU, there is the question whether there is a better raw material that we can be using for this, because wood is one of the elements for woodworking industry, and we can. So wood is one of the hints for you that now woodworking industry can be popularized as one of this green streams, because for us now it is not very powerfully popularized, not very popularized wood as the raw material of the future, and I think EU and the whole world to a certain degree popularizes such things that are connected to the topic of environment and green areas, and I think that wood is a perfect element if we talk about environment. And just commenting the speech of Miss Natalia. Thank you. I want to give an opportunity for Ukrainian speakers to respond to this as well, but I want to add another additional question from our audience that we received before the event, because the wood is used not only for making furniture, but also as the source of energy. And the question was about a wood charcoal and how it's going to be used in the future, and how is it going to impact the energy security in Ukraine. So I want to invite everyone to this discussion. I see our colleague Mr. Pavlo Kravets is in the office, so maybe it's good you answer. Yes, thank you. So do you hear me? First of all, I want to check. Yes. I want to say thank you for the invitation, and I think the question that was connected to the future production of Well, and I think this is also about the question that Mr. Marek mentioned, and I think it is also about the use of wood for energy purposes, and we're probably talking about RED 3, right? If I'm not mistaken. I want to say that at least in FSC we have very clear policy and strategy how to encounter this, and from Polish colleagues. We already heard that we need to really stick to this cascade principle. So we look at this wood as the future resource that has to be used in a more efficient way. So this way we start with using it for building houses, for example, SLT and so on. And then again, under this cascade principle, we are using those leftovers, and again, under compliance with environmental requirements, they can be used as well for energy purposes. So this is the answer. And I also wanted to reflect on one of the previous questions that were about implementation of EUDR in Ukraine and what is the situation nowadays. I wanted to mention that FSC Ukraine is one of the initiators for implementation of this European regulation in Ukraine, because we believe it's one of the powerful catalyzers for Euro integration of forest sector in Ukraine, and is going to be also supporting and activating all the other issues that are connected to forestry and woodworking. And when we studied this issue, we realized that only by the powers of people who work in this area, woodworkers as well, we cannot move it from one point. And this is a very complex issue that is covering issues of state policy and all the related issues. And when we talk about Paris Agreement, when we talk about climate goals and the issue of biodiversity and technology and many other things, so us understanding these challenges, we formed a platform of 3 international organizations. This is FSC, WWF, and FAO. And we have had this second meeting where we're trying to consolidate, and we are talking about representatives of the state, civil society, and business to tackle this issue together. So there's certain progress done, certain results of the work you can get acquainted with on our website and FSC, except for the process that is covering all the stakeholders and have its own solutions, and they're also on the table. We are ready to support forming this partnership between businesses in Ukraine and Poland, because when we talk about FSC, we practically don't have borders. We work with our colleagues from FSC Poland every day, and we see how common platforms can be formed and some unions, and some of them even though they are not formalized even, but it's a very good example of such initiative that can be also done together with Polish colleagues. Those are the results of the webinar on Rebuild Ukraine that took place in Warsaw on the 14th of November, where, as we say, stakeholders, they showed their will to create this coalition for wood, because within the framework of big recovery that we rebuilding that we expect for overcoming all the problems, and after the victory that is going to be for all of us. It's relevant for Ukraine. Of course, we will need construction material, and of course, we will take it from properly managed forest. And we're talking about this example of future coalition for wood. It's already on the table. You can find it on our website, and we invite everyone. Thank you, Mr. Pavlo. I see a raised hand. I'm going to give the floor to you a little bit later, but just 1 second. I just wanted to mention another question from the audience, and we have a question in the chat as for whether Polish companies are ready for implementation of EUDR regulation from EU. And also we had a question whether Polish forest company, furniture companies are interested in investment into Ukraine. And this is for our Polish speakers. And then I'm going to give the floor to people who raised their hand.
No ja myślę, że wszystkie polskie firmy są przygotowane w mniejszym lub większym zakresie do
Well, I
wdrożenia
think that Polish companies, they are so or less ready for those requirements that were set by EU, because otherwise they will not be, it will not be possible to function in the market. And hence, in each company, there's a separate person that is responsible for compliance with such EU requirements. I think for those companies, it's not very hard because they are already acquainted with the realities of the market and regulations and certification that is operating on the European market. And I think that Polish colleagues can be providing information for Ukrainian colleagues in such working modes as for such requirements. And during the last meeting of European Element, there were certain changes done, and we are also tracking those changes, what's happening. And I think this is the only way. There's no other way. Each company has to adapt their work for being compliant with these requirements. If I may add, I would like to say that the issue of requirements is also connected to the area that is combining the obtaining the wood and processing the wood. Hence, we need to connect the supplier of the wood and the company that is buying the wood. And we're talking about the state Polish forest that is the main distributor and supplier of the wood and others. And here, this information is obtained very clearly, but we're still improving the process of information exchange as for the certification, not to create additional problems and not to make the way for providing information harder. So we try to make sure that this provision of the supply of wood is happening in a very clear and organized way. And our companies are ready for this. And I think that Ukrainian companies, they also have to do this. I remember how it was in back in the year when Poland was joining EU, and it was very serious. We had to work on all the regulation, all the requirements, so nothing happens, no problems we have in the future, so it can reflect on the work of our company, so we had to be very thorough. If you approach this from the same way, we have a chance to become equal partners in European space. I think all of us, we need to try to make it happen. Thank you very much. Okay, Mr. Zinovi Broida, you have your hand raised. Yes, I'm sorry. For some reason, my camera doesn't want to work. I agree, especially supporting the speeches of three last speakers, that the segment of woodworking that is the priority now, it's the part of the whole life cycle of wood. And the thing is that if we come from the approaches of circular economy that was put as a base in the beginning of 90s, we were working very closely and meticulously with Polish colleagues from Romania from 2000s, and this is we have a huge progress. But as for today, woodworking sector cannot be separated from the whole life cycle for wood. I will explain why. In climate change respect, especially in the zone of Carpathians, we can see it's a lot of overheat there, and it's going to be changing the issue of raw materials and so on. And within the framework of the Donetsk strategy yesterday, Espen unfortunately was not giving very good updates, and also Carpathian strategy. I don't agree to, and we were proposing such projects where we would be looking at the clusterization of the whole industry with the chains of processing wood. And coming back to this, we would really want to have really such programs and integration of those programs that we have, and neighborhood programs and so on. And we would like to have woodworking there as a first one, but unfortunately somewhere in the background and everything that is connected to Green Deal and transition into a fair transition to EU, it is somehow put away in the list of interests. So I would like to be giving more attention to this opportunity of cooperation with joint programs as a base for development of approaches in circular economy in the whole cycle. And in reality, this is technological progress, what they call in the EU acquis, it's better accessible technology. But I'm going to say that the implementation better accessible, it can be understood in different ways. So accessible from the best for such countries as Ukraine, for example, and neighboring Moldova. So this is more about better accessible or accessible better. And I think under this principle, if we look into this, I think the cooperation in particular with Polish representatives in this area, foresters, it can be used in a very quality way. Can you please introduce yourself? Znowu Broide, Director of State Scientific Technical Center Eco Resource and head of the Committee of on the Regional Administration. And thank you very much. Mr. Yuri, the floor goes to you. Colleagues, there was a question about burning the wood, and here we need to mention the following. Of course, for companies that are working in processing wood, woodworking, and including the economy goals, of course, it's more feasible to have a maximum processing and the whole cycle. So the more we have this, the more it's going to be investment for to the budget and expansion of production and capital investment. If we burn wood as much as you know as well, including the situation with the war and consequences, a lot of damages. So wood burning, including the ecologist specialist in this area, whether it's really useful because Ukraine really has suffered from the war. And as far as we know, Ukraine has its own gas that is fully covering the needs of the country. So I think in this we need to also engage ecologists and be having discussions with them. Thank you. Thank you. If we have Yuri Duk that connected to us, I would like to give the floor to him. He's the coordinator of the platform called Wood Industry. So I have a question. Do you hear us, Mr.? Can you speak with us? Okay, thank you. Then we will be continuing the composition we have right now. Thank you very much for this discussion. I would like to come back to the question of experience of Poland and cooperation with Ukrainian companies, because this is the main focus of our project. We're trying to find those points of connection, this common ground where we can be working together. And I have a question about how in Poland the wood is used for bioenergetic industry, and what experience could you share? I see two raised hands. Mr. Wojciech, please, the first one is yours. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Wojciech Cichy, and I represent Poznan Technological University. Previously, I used to work in the Institute of Forest Technology and Research Network Lukasiewicz. As for technological use of wood in Poland, this is quite a hard problem in Poland because a lot of negativity was done by the politicians, to be honest. A few years ago, where they meant that they put as one of the streams for renewable energy development by burning biomass, usage of biomass and wood biomass, and mixed with charcoal, because previously Polish energy was basing 80% on use of charcoal. Back then, we believed it to be the best solution. Later on, researchers, scientists, they came to the conclusion when you combine biomass with charcoal, it brings you to use of even more charcoal, and from the environmental point of view, it wasn't the best decision. But instead of that, there was a system of subventions created where green energy would be received from burning biomass of wood origin, and you could get additional subvention. It was very popular, that system. Later on, some changes took place. We talk about powerful professional energy, and some investment appeared, investment projects that were supported by the government, and this was created in order to build opportunities that would be burning biomass, because if we talk about other maybe materials like straw or grain, this was not very popular. Scientists, they proposed certain solutions, but including the limitation of subvention. If we talk about burning biomass, usage of biomass, it was not very popular. I'm talking about straw. But the discussions, they are not stopping. As for identification of technical wood and conclusions or definitions, as they say, it will be used on the level of regulation, and it's going to be on the edge between woodworking and energy. So the situation is quite interesting. On the one hand, we have energy, and we are encouraging to use renewable energy sources, biomass, because yes, this was the approach. On the other side, the industry is very developed on the background on the Europe, and the assortment that is used in the energy industry is very wide. So the first scandal that is connected to wood energy. This was a station, a power plant that put plans for wood burning, and the first regulations were introduced for wood of different levels of quality that should have been used for this. Once again, later on, some changes took place, and now there is work being done under what do we understand under wood energy, and for the industry to be able to use this wood that used to be called waste, but it's not waste at all, and it can be used for so-called materials with some plastic with elements of wood. But what it's going to end with is not even that interesting. I think powerful energy doesn't have to be concentrating on wood burning. And when we talk about the energy of middle level of power, this is possible. Another thing, logistical matters, of course, they play a big role because it's all connected to huge costs for transporting, and none of this is covered. And worse quality wood can be burned right on the spot. And we need to remember that Polish energy, unfortunately, has old system of energy system, and it brings some additional cost, this obsolete system. And if we talk about the energy that we have in that fuel, so the cost is approximately 15%. I'm not sure what the situation is like today, but I know that the losses are quite significant, and maybe we need to be building smaller plants in the fields where big industry is not interested in usage of food waste, and a big role of popularization and other assortment of plant biomass for energy needs. In Poland, there's no such united system. It's very dispersed, and I think this is a huge amount of biomass that could replace wood that is used in energy. So this is what the situation looks like as of right now. I'm sorry, Mr. Wojciech, I want to interrupt you. I'm sorry, but we're running out of time. I really want to give the floor to Mr. Yuri Duch, who is the coordinator of the platform called Wood Industry UI. Thank you, Mr. Yuri, that you could join us. I wanted to ask you also in the topic of our today's meeting. So those are the challenges that Ukrainian entrepreneurs face, and where can we cooperate with Polish companies. Well, thank you for the invitation. I'm sorry we had another event right here in the production. It was very noisy, and now we went to the conference hall. So I want to say right away, when we talk about Ukraine and Poland and woodworking industry, then Poland for us, first thing is an example, really, and I think Poland has to be proud of themselves because a lot of things we can take from the organization of the work and the industry and technology. Once again, still they are our partner and our allies because a lot of Ukrainian companies they cooperate. The furniture companies they work with Polish companies, they have joint products. And this makes sense because in Poland, woodworking and furniture industry is more developed. Poland is a little bit further away from us. We're catching up. We're adopting those technologies, and a lot of furniture in Poland is made with hands with Ukrainian and Polish furniture makers, and this is the synergy. And of course, the market in Poland is deficit market because that's more opportunities. There's a disbalance, and as well as in Ukraine as well, a deficit market. But on this balance of woodworking and consumption, this synergy is holding on. But there's a very big potential in cooperation. Of course, how it's going to go in the future, how this cooperation will be implemented, depends on the constructive from the Polish business, Ukrainian business. But there is a lot of common ground, except for joint production of products. I know that a lot of Polish manufacturers, Polish companies, and I know that they are looking into investment opportunities in Ukraine, and many times they've been visiting different regions in Ukraine. They were looking in where they could be opening branches of their Polish companies, investing into this. And I must say that Ukraine has something to offer here, because if we talk about different levels of processing, the primary wood processing, we have quite a saturated market here. If we talk about production of furniture and also frame constructions from wood and making frame houses, there's a big potential. Now in Ukraine, by Polish example, once again, we have industrial parks, like in Poland, there's economic zones with vertical integration of woodworking. When the wood is processed into materials, into timber, and then it is done in this park, it is processed into furniture or construction elements. And I also must mention that a lot of Ukrainian companies, leading companies, they're companies with foreign investments. A lot of them, they also have production in Poland, and this gives us certain synergy, because if we talk about export abroad, even outside of EU, America, and other countries, other continents, that here it could be very good working interstate cluster where some furniture made or some other product made from wood in Poland and Ukraine, it can be transferred through port opportunities, for example, for export, and this synergy can be even that Ukrainian companies are already working through this stream and the logistics of this and the sea logistics, and this is not something. This is not something just in the conversations or something we dream about. It's something how it is already. And I'm gonna summarize many countries. They can be, of course, competitive sectors. But now, even without the engagement of the states, we need to understand that Ukrainian, Polish business and woodworking can and must be allies, work together on development of our woodworking cluster and compete with our parts of the world where we can be strong, because Poland is one of the tops in furniture, and Ukraine is catching up and constantly growing in woodworking. And this way we could be competing with Eastern furniture manufacturers in Russia and Belarus that not often really play in this market. And here's our potential. But once again, the implementation of this potential will depend on how rational, constructive we are and how we work in this direction by improving our connections and doing cross investments. So Polish business also invest into production on territory of Ukraine because it's logistically convenient. And I wish us patience and strength and wisdom to implement all this and stick to this course. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Yuri, for such an optimistic overlook. Mr. Daniil, I'm giving the floor to you. You've been holding your hand for a long time. Hello, dear colleagues. Daniil Maladi, NGO Open Forest and author of profiled digital content. I have a question for Polish woodworking representatives. Do you have conflicts on the supply of raw materials with state enterprises? And if yes, what is the character of such and how do you solve them? Thank you. I think this is a question to Mr. Marek, Mr. Piotr, who can answer. I will explain why we're so interested, because the state enterprise of forest in Ukraine, so state forest agencies that are contacting this when it gets to supply, they always put on Polish model as an example, and it's not a secret that they have quite a lot of conflicts with business. And it's interesting how Poland they go about these conflicts, because in raw material, this is deficit goods, right? If you could answer, I would be very glad.
Piotr się widzę, zgłasza.
Panie Piotrze, будь ласка.
Ja tylko tak krótko chciałem powiedzieć.
I'm gonna be very
Są
brief.
konflikty, nie chciałbym tego nazywać konfliktami.
I would like
Tak jak ja już
to say, I don't know if it's a
wspomniałem,
conflict. I
przedmówcy,
cannot call it a conflict, as I
miejsce
mentioned
przy
before.
państwowym
And
i tutaj
previous
chyba naprawdę
speakers, they also
zaznaczyć,
talked about this.
że dbają o te lasy.
I must
Od wielu
say
lat,
that
od II wojny światowej,
state
tam,
Polish
jeżeli
forest,
się mylę,
they starting
w II
from
wojnie,
the
II
World War
wojnie
II,
światowej,
probably
to
they are
lesistość w
responsible
Polsce
for this.
wzrasta, tych lasów jest coraz
And
więcej.
starting from
I
World
jakby
War
tutaj
II,
chwała
we
za to
must
leśnikom,
say that
bo robią swoją pracę naprawdę, naprawdę dobrze. Co
the
innego
number
jest
of
tutaj
forests
kwestia
grow,
dostaw sprzętu
and
drewna, czy
we need
warunków
to really
technicznych.
pay
Tutaj
respect
na
to
przykład w
the
tym roku
state
mieliśmy dosyć
forest.
dyskusję
They
w tym
manage it
temacie
very good, and
i
when it gets to
to tak
supply
nie
or
jest, że
some
jedna strona będzie zadowolona, druga będzie
technical
niezadowolona, to jest
requirements, we
biznes.
have active discussions
Wiadomo,
starting from
zupełnie takim jakby stanowisku, że
previous
lasy powinny
years. So this is
wspierać taki
business.
biznes i stwarzać jak najlepsze warunki dla
Some
rządzącym, żeby
some
ten przemysł drzewny
parties
się
happy, another
jakby
parties not happy. It's always how it is in
miał
business,
jakby
but we need
wsparcie
to, of
właśnie
course, be
między innymi w
creating such
lasach,
conditions
bo to oni w mniejszym lub
wood
tutaj głównym odbiorcą, głównym odbiorcą
industry to be developing and
no a to jest
getting
nasz jedyny
support
surowiec,
from state wood in Poland. And of
na którym
course,
pracujemy.
we are the
Drewno
main
w Polsce jest
users
jedno z
and
najdroższych w Europie.
of these products. And
I tutaj
this is
jakby
one
ten
of the raw
problem z
materials we're
dostępnością
using.
drewna
Wood in
będzie jeszcze
Poland is one
większy.
of the most
Mamy taką
expensive
świadomość,
in Europe, I
szczególnie
think.
jeśli chodzi o
And this
ekonomię w świecie,
problem with the
jakby
access
że
to wood is going to be only growing.
było mniej.
We are conscious of
Mówię, ja
this
bym nie nazywał tego
problem.
to jest może zbyt takie fajne
And is
słowo,
it
ale
possible
są
that
takie
it's going to be much
nieporozumienia i
less
takie Książki
Would
gdzieś tam zgadzamy
yes,
z Blaskiem
but I wouldn't
pod
call
względem
it
faktu, że
a
Unia Europejska
conflict.
działają dobrze
There are
w
certain
gospodarce leśnym,
maybe misunderstandings,
ale na tym polega chyba biznes.
and this
Gdzieś tam
is
trzeba się
a
znaleźć pośrodku. Jedni są
powerful
bardziej zadowoleni,
state organization,
mniej,
but that's what the business is. You always
ale
need to be
to jest
looking
taka,
for
taka,
for this for this
takie są
golden
stosunki. One są dobre. Ja bym sobie życzył
golden
oczywiście, żeby były jak
medium.
najlepsze.
And we will
Dlatego
never
tak jak
find a
wspomniałem, to nie
perfect
jesteśmy jedynym
solution. We have
klientem
quite a good relationship. Of course, we would like for them to be better because we are the key client
No i musimy to
for
jak
State
najbardziej.
Forest
Nie możemy siedzieć jak
in
na gnieździe, musimy każdy do jednej
Poland.
bramki pilnować. Nie chcę mówić tutaj, że
We are
jesteśmy
the main
zależni
users, but
w
we're all
100%, ale no, bo
working.
może ktoś by
We're
mówił,
all
że
in one
kłamstwo,
boat, you know. And I'm not. I cannot say we're 100% dependent on them, but we're the key users of their
Takie
product.
konflikty, może inaczej, nieporozumienia na pewno będą.
Może uzupełnię, że
I think
może
conflicts and
kwestia
some misunderstandings are going to be there. Of course, there are there. I will compliment, if I may, the question of cooperation between state forests that are providing raw materials and the users. It's basing on two principles. This is getting raw wood within the framework of the history of previous purchases, and it's approximately 70% of procurement, and another part is it's sold on portals where the price can be raised. Hence, the entrepreneurs, they can be raising the price for raw material. From the economic point of view, there's a big demand for raw material, but less supply, and it's going to be, of course, changing with the consideration of the changes in useful land, and at this moment we can be hoping for limitation in supply in raw wood, and maybe it can be called a conflict, as you mentioned. It's going to be a big problem with entrepreneurs as also providing needed amount of wood mass that is needed for production. I think that no one would want for their entrepreneurs to be working at 50% of their capacity. Hence, if there's a chance to provide a minimal amount of raw materials with the use of with our sources, it would be very good. Then we will be looking for other sources in case if it's needed. Of course, we'll be hoping for sources from Ukraine, but this all need to be compliant. But each country takes care of this, that as much as possible of added value has to be happening in the territory of the country, and each country takes care of their economy, and each country will be trying to do their best to make sure that as much as possible of raw material is processed in the territory of their own country. So of course, when it gets to conflicts, they are there and they will be there. This is this is also connected to the requirements on the quality that is set for the suppliers and for the users. If it's high quality, hence the users, they have a chance to receive such materials and such wood that will be meeting the rational use of wood in the woodworking industry. We are in good contact with foresters, and we try to take care of this, so the raw material is getting to us in good quality, sorted, and because the finished product it matters, and I think everyone knows about this. Yes, Yuri, you have a raised hand. Do you want to add something?
Якщо ні, тоді будемо завершувати.
If no, then we will be finishing.
Шановні учасники, колеги, наша
Uh,
дискусія підійшла до завершення. Я хочу
Our
подякувати кожному
dear
з вас за
colleagues
активну
and
участь,
speakers,
за
our
цікаві
discussion
запитання.
is
Ми
coming to its end. I want to say thank you
ключові
for very
аспекти
interesting
розвитку
questions.
деревообробної галузі,
We
контексті
looked into the
інтеграції
key
України в
aspects
ЄС,
of development
побачили,
of
що
woodworking
виклики,
in the
які
context of
стоять
integration
перед
of
нашими країнами,
Ukraine
можна
to EU.
перетворити на
We
спільні
saw that the
можливості
challenges
і
that
общі
our
досвід
countries
будуть
face
цінні.
and can be turned
Ще
into
раз хочу
common
подякувати спікерам за
opportunities,
їх
and
внесок
Polish
в
experience is very
аналіз.
valuable.
Донорам
We want to
нашим
say thank you
допомогу
once
створення
again
такої чудової
for
платформи для діалогу.
your
Так,
effort, your
нагадаю,
speakers, and
Міжнародний
deep
фонд дослідження
analysis,
та
and
Open
donors
Society
for their help
Foundations.
to
І я
create such
сподіваюся, що
dialogue. And
наша
once again,
сьогоднішня
it's
дискусія може
International
стати основою для
Renaissance
майбутньої
Foundation
співпраці. Бажаю всім натхнення,
and Open
нових
Foundations,
ідей,
and I want
і до нових зустрічей. До
to
побачення.
say that I hope that this
Дякую.
discussion will
Дякую,
become
до
the base
побачення.
for
До
future
побачення.
cooperation. Thank you.